Most of the trials that we've been involved in have been watched by other institutions, the Institute of Education, LSDA, now LSN, some of the individual colleges, in some cases even the EU or businesses like Learn Direct Scotland. And I find the best way of answering the question is to look through their summaries, look through the information that they've summarized and just bring it back and distill out some key messages. Some of the themes that come back again and again are about increased concentration. A typical quote will be a tutor saying, "Normally I couldn't get my learners to engage with one activity for more than 5 minutes, and now I've got to force them to stop after 2 hours." That kind of idea, significant shifts in increases in concentration. Or another common comment is about the learning being self-paced, or about the tutor being able to mix it into another scenario. So the learners that are going roaring ahead, they get given the PDA to work with when they've completed their class activities, or learners who are falling behind might have some targeted activities or things to practice on in mobile learning, and to add that to the work they're doing. This mix of learning styles idea is a fairly common thread. A lot of tutors are finding it quite a useful contribution. Another quote that comes back quite often is around learners repeating a quiz or a worksheet again and again till they get it 100% right, which is something that they never ever did when it was papered worksheets or when it was other group activities. But by doing it themselves and trying, they really wanted to get everyone right, and they did the same 10-question quiz 10 times till they were all correct. This sort of motivation is a strong strand, not just a motivation for the content, but often a motivation around learning to use the IT. And we surprised ourselves by finding that a lot of our potential learners that we were looking at weren't particularly strong users of IT. They weren't comfortable with word processors, they weren't comfortable with the web browsing, but they were quite happy to spend time learning to use a pocket PC, because this was something that was new to them, but it wasn't that they didn't feel excluded by not knowing about it. And having completed some of the mobile learning activities or the trials, they then asked to have some training in using the web, or in using word processors, or using more standard ICT. And this was a fairly common thread pulled out on several of the different research reports. Another, I guess, is around the learning being owned, the learner owning their own learning. It was being more individual or more personal, sometimes more private. We had big successes working with teenage girls who were learning about some sexual health, teenage pregnant mums, I should have said, who had issues around sexual health or healthy eating for the babies. And I think, as far as we could understand, they didn't want to admit to their peers that they didn't know these things, but were actually quite motivated to learn about them. And we lent them pocket PCs, mobile devices with learning materials on them, and these were warmly received, very popular. Learners spent a lot of time working through them. And the last thread I want to look at is trust. In many of our trials, the learners were excluded learners, and we were unable to get any insurance for any of the devices that we used. The colleges were worried about them coming back, and in almost all cases, all of the devices came back fine. And this is true in all the different trials we've tried in a variety of different places. The loss percentage that we had is half that of what you get with library books. It really was a lot lower than everybody was expecting. And it seems like one of the strongest reasons for this was the learners being trusted with devices, with gadgets, with things that were expensive and precious, where I suppose typically they hadn't been trusted with that kind of thing. And this trust thing in itself was really powerful. It got a lot of engagement for us. It got a lot of quite valuable feedback from the learners when they were going through the trials, and I think was a significant help in making the mobile learning efficient and work well. So what comes next? We've looked at some of the ideas behind mobile learning. We've quickly looked at some of the different types of technology in the mix. We've looked at examples of different learning materials. We've got a bit of feedback from tutors who've been using it in the field. But what next? What should we do looking forward? For me, it's fairly clear. There's several areas which are untapped. They're rich seams. They're right there. The first is using sound, using audio. Majority of learners are carrying around MP3 players at the moment. Why not make use of them? think about your learning, think about what you could do with audio, try and make use of that. Audio, podcast. The second is more of the mobile devices that I spoke about earlier, more of the pocket PCs, more of the PDAs. It's very easy to put learning materials onto those, to put reading reference materials, to put quizzes, to put games. There's several resources online to help you do that. I think tutors need to be using these tools more widely. Increasingly they'll be in everybody's pocket. Right now they're in businessmen's pocket, but large numbers of colleges do own them. So secondly, I'd say this is mobile resources. The third thing is using mobile devices to gather media, to publish, to collaborate, to pull together resources and share them. And this is something which I haven't covered particularly in this talk, but which I feel very strongly about. And we have a tool called the Media Board, which we use for this, but there are many other ways as well. It's all about using the communication facilities that the devices have at the moment, using their abilities to collect resources, to collect pictures, collect sounds, to investigate, to go online, to look for information. It's kind of an extension of what you can do on a PC, but in your pocket and able to collect media more readily. And using that as the ingredients for collaborating or building or collecting media. These to me seem the three major things that we need to do more of. Using audio for learning, using pocket PC type PDA devices and putting resources onto those, thinking about resources being on those, and using mobile devices to collect and gather media as part of an activity, projects, collaboration. These seem to be the three what nexts that are waiting. And I'd like to finish off with one final thought. This thought's particularly around the collaboration or the collecting of the media. What kind of learning are we actually encouraging here? With the first lot, we're extending the reach of more traditional class-based learning. We're just giving you more access to resources, more personally, into the devices that are more likely to be in your pocket. That's kind of safe learning. It's extending the learning from its existing metaphor. But what about the disruptive learning? What about the troublesome learners? What about the phones that go off during your lectures, or learners texting each other during exams? What about taking pictures on the phones, maybe pictures that are inappropriate? How do you harness this growing need to collaborate, to create, to build? I think the real leap forward is around this more disruptive learning. It's empowering the learners and giving them tools to create their own projects, to create their own multimedia presentations on their phones. I think this is a discussion for the next chapter, not this chapter, because I've taken more than enough of your time. Thank you very much for inviting me into your conference and listening to this. I hope it was useful. If you are interested in finding more about mobile learning, please Google it or ask some of the people who are going to be around you at the conference today who are very passionate about it to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Bye.